What if what keeps you from receiving isn't absence, but guilt? Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the subtle one that lives in small gestures. The guilt that makes you reject praise, shrug off affection, minimize your pain so you won't be a burden. Guilt that whispers, "Who am I to deserve this?" Maybe you grew believing affection must be earned, that to receive good you had to pay with perfection. So you tried to be light, helpful, well-behaved, and settled for just enough, never enough. Until something beautiful arrived, and instead of embracing it, you stepped back silently saying, "This isn't for me." It's hard to see life's problem isn't what the world withheld, but how you feel you mustn't take. Inside you still lives an old judge, measuring you with the ruler of merit. Praise is only welcome if you're flawless. Rest only if you're undeniably tired. Presence only if you don't occupy too much. And so life offers, and you don't know how to open your hands. Perhaps it's time to unlearn that price. To discover silently that what reaches you can be a gift, not an obligation. Some never learned to receive without bowing, because every act of love came with strings. Repay quickly, reshape yourself, repay the debt. Gifts came tagged. Don't forget who gave this. So affection became debt, not home. You learned to thank before feeling, to smile before trusting, to adjust before allowing. Now when someone offers you something, praise, comfort, time, something inside you shrinks, not from pride, but from memory. Your body knows that kindness can become demand, that generosity can morph into bargaining chip. Even when today's gesture is pure, you brace yourself. Receiving has become a battlefield between hunger and fear. You begin telling yourself you're better off alone. That independence is noble. But deep inside sits a child quietly waiting, not for luxury, but for someone to say, "You can receive this without owing anything." Maybe your healing begins here, not in wholehearted acceptance, but in a timid permission to accept a small, no-strings-attached gift. It wasn't a grand epiphany, just a gesture, a small, almost unseen act that caught you off guard. Someone offered something, a kind word, random help, caring without motive. And for once, you didn't recoil. You didn't refuse. You didn't say, "Oh, you didn't have to." You breathed and you accepted. At first, guilt followed. A whisper, "Are you taking too much?" But then silence. And in that stillness, something shifted. A long-sealed room inside, forgotten for years, stirred awake. That yes pressed open a door that had been stuck. The door to receiving without cost, no credentials, no punishment. And you realized, receiving doesn't require a resume of suffering. You don't have to be broken to deserve rest. You don't have to be perfect to deserve affection. You don't have to be useful to justify love. And that realization didn't arrive as a lesson. It came as lightness in your chest, a fresh ground beneath your feet. Life was the same, but now you weren't only a giver. You began to allow yourself to receive too. The world remained unchanged. People still had their demands, rhythms, absences, but something broke inside you. You stopped trying to earn care. You stopped justifying rest. You stopped rehearsing thanks before feeling peace. And that shift felt like a quiet miracle. You found you could say thank you without apology. You could be moved by praise without repaying it. You could accept tenderness without explaining yourself. In that raw, unguarded space, a fragile belonging emerged, not born from performance but from presence. Because there's a kind of care that doesn't charge you. It sees you. A kind of love that doesn't demand return. It just needs you. You learned that real affection arrives when you're lost or fractured, not when you're polished. And instead of asking for repair, it simply sits beside you. And surprisingly, you felt stronger there, in vulnerability embraced. Not because you became unshakable, but because you no longer hid your sore places. In that space where you didn't have to pretend healthiness, healing began. It took time to see, but deeper than fear of receiving was forgetting your inherent worth. Worth unlinked from performance, usefulness, or perfection. Worth simply for being, breathing, existing. but you believed you had to earn it. And undoing that belief felt wrong. Looking back, you realized the meritocracy of affection was self-wounding. It meant love only came when you were better, stronger, ready. But no one is ever truly ready. Yet kindness shouldn't be withheld. You realized you don't need to achieve to deserve welcome. With that understanding, your relationship with the world shifted. You stopped bartering affection. No longer offered your peace for notice. Stopped giving until exhaustion in exchange for praise. You began living in a new rhythm, where love is nourishment, rest is necessity, kindness is not negotiation. Slowly, discomfort became silence, fear became ground, because you stopped asking for permission to be worthy. You simply remembered you already were. You didn't mark the moment, but one day noticed. You were lowering your guard, accepting affection without calculating returns, welcoming a helping hand without planning repayment. Kindness touched you without becoming debt. Your heart, once guarded, began to open without asking permission, not because everything was fixed, but because it no longer needed to hide. Then you felt something foreign, the relief of being genuinely received. Not because you deserved it, but because you exist. Not because you were model, but because you were human. And in that moment, you understood. Receiving is generosity to others too. When you accept, you allow someone else to give, to feel presence, to be needed. Saying no blocks life's flow. A heart that opens loses nothing, it shares. And in that sharing there's sweetness, the lightness of not needing to know, control, or hold everything. You can receive without losing autonomy. Be cared for without surrendering yourself. Cry without apology. Be whole even on fragmented days. Maybe that's what the world wants to tell you. There's strength in allowing, beauty in letting good flow in, even when you're still healing. The greatest shift wasn't learning to ask, it was stopping refusing. Asking still holds control, an attempt to be deserving. But receiving effortlessly, without self-judgment, without bowing down, that was the revolution of your soul. That was when you stopped fighting what deep down always wanted you to heal. You stopped measuring affection. You stopped dodging joy like it might slip away. You stopped fearing unexpected kindness. You simply let yourself be touched, not as needy, but as open. And that permission changed everything. Because belonging isn't earned, it flows. And you, damned for so long, began to flow. Now when someone offers an attentive glance, a listening ear, simple presence, you don't wonder if it's too much. You just breathe. And in that single breath, there's rest. Reconciliation with who you always were. Worthy, even on muddy days, even in imperfect versions, even when you felt not enough. Because it wasn't you who was lacking, it was the measure you were using. And the phrase that remains when silence fills your soul: you don't have to deserve what's already yours by soul right. If you too have learned to receive something kind without diminishing yourself, share what you now allow yourself to hold. Return when you forget you also deserve rest. Here, your place is always ready.